Commander Volkov, I need your decision. Admiral Chen's voice carried the weight of exhaustion. This conversation had apparently already happened 3 times with 3 other officers. I stood in the diplomatic chamber, processing information that should have terrified me. I was being offered a political marriage to Syraith the Scourge, the most feared warrior in the Velakari Imperium. Chen pulled up a holographic display. Syraith has personally led campaigns, resulting in conquest of 17 contested systems. Her tactical innovations are studied across 3 species. She's never been defeated in single combat. Intelligence estimates she's directly responsible for over 10,000 enemy casualties. The hologram showed a striking Velakari woman, violet skin, pointed ears, scars that spoke of extensive combat. Her eyes in the image were cold, calculating. She's also, Chen added with visible discomfort, widely considered the most beautiful woman in Velakari culture. Their aesthetics value strength alongside appearance. Syraith embodies both. So she's competent, experienced, and attractive, I observed. Why are 3 officers treating this like a suicide mission? Because she's dangerous, Commander, personally dangerous. She's killed subordinates for insubordination, executed prisoners, destroyed entire installations for strategic inefficiency. Her reputation isn't just military achievement, it's ruthlessness bordering on cruelty. Or what looks like cruelty from outside, I said quietly. Chen paused, caught off guard. Explain. We spent 2 years fighting the Velakari. I studied their culture extensively. Velakari military doctrine demands absolute decisiveness. Hesitation is considered worse than wrong action. They execute subordinates for insubordination because their command structure depends on immediate obedience where seconds matter. They execute prisoners who don't provide intelligence because they lack resources for long-term detention and consider it more merciful than slow death. I leaned forward. Everything in our reports about Syraith, cruelty, reads like someone following Velakari military doctrine in situations where that doctrine demands hard choices. That doesn't make her cruel, it makes her a product of her culture doing her job when there are no good options. Chen studied me. You're defending her. I'm questioning whether the reputation is earned or projected. There's a difference between someone who enjoys causing suffering and someone who accepts suffering as necessary cost of duty. Why you, then? You're competent but not senior enough for this assignment. Why offer after 3 others refused? Because I'm expendable but educated enough to maybe not cause a diplomatic incident. Essentially, yes. Chen didn't sugarcoat it. This is a sacrifice assignment. You'll be bound to the most dangerous woman in known space for political purposes that may not serve you personally. The others understood that. They chose self-preservation. I'm giving you the same choice. Accept this and potentially build something meaningful from a political marriage to someone who terrifies military commands, or refuse and I'll find someone else. I didn't hesitate. I accept, just like that. No negotiation, no time to consider. Just like that. Because everyone keeps calling this a sacrifice, but I'm not seeing what I'm sacrificing. I'm being offered a chance to build a bridge with someone who's brilliant, accomplished, and deeply misunderstood. The danger everyone fears reads like competence being mistaken for malice. So yes, I accept. When do I meet her? The meeting was arranged in neutral territory, a conference room on a diplomatic station. I arrived early, reviewed my cultural preparation, and waited. When Syraith entered, the temperature seemed to drop. She moved with controlled grace of someone perpetually combat-ready, her hand never far from where a weapon would be. Up close she was striking, but what caught my attention wasn't her beauty. It was her eyes. Intelligence reports described them as cold, calculating, emotionless. I saw exhaustion. Deep, profound weariness that went beyond physical fatigue. She assessed me in seconds, scanning for weapons, evaluating posture, marking exits. Not paranoia, professional habit even in safe space. Commander Volkov, she said in precise Terran standard. "I am Syraith, first blade of the Velakari Imperium. I have been informed you accepted the binding alliance where 3 others refused. This suggests either courage or foolishness." "Which is it?" "Neither," I responded in carefully practiced Velakari. "It suggests recognition of opportunity." Her expression shifted fractionally, surprise at hearing her language from a human, quickly controlled. She switched to Velakari. "You speak my language, adequately if with formal academic accent. This is unexpected. I studied Velakari culture extensively during the conflict. I found your people fascinating even when we were enemies." "Fascinating." She tested the word. "Most humans find us terrifying." "Terror and fascination aren't mutually exclusive. Your military doctrine is brilliant even when it's brutal. Your cultural values are consistent even when they're incomprehensible by Terran standards." Syraith sat with controlled precision, positioning herself to observe both me and the door. "You know what this binding entails by Velakari custom. Partnership oath, mutual responsibility for each other's honor, shared accountability, sexual and emotional exclusivity, though emotional component is secondary to practical partnership. Dissolution requires mutual consent or formal challenge, which given your combat record I'm incentivized to avoid." A ghost of humor touched her expression. "You have done your research. Most humans focus on sexual exclusivity and ignore more significant elements. The partnership and accountability are the significant elements. The rest is biology." "You say that now. Many have said similar before discovering they cannot tolerate proximity to someone they fear." Her voice carried no emotion, but I heard the weight of experience. "I do not wish to bind myself to someone who will flinch from me, who will see me as the scourge before seeing me as person. If you harbor such fear, acknowledge it now." "I don't fear you," I said honestly. "I'm wary. You're the most accomplished combat commander of your generation, and I'm not fool enough to underestimate that. But fear, no. I've studied your campaigns. What I see isn't cruelty or ruthlessness. It's someone making the best possible decisions in impossible situations, and living with consequences while everyone else judges from safety." Syraith went very still. "You think you understand my choices?" "No, I think I recognize your choices were constrained by circumstances I'll never fully comprehend. I'm not arrogant enough to claim understanding, but I'm willing to learn." Her hand, resting with perfect stillness on the table, trembled fractionally before she controlled it. "Why?" The word was barely audible. "Why what? Why do you accept this binding? Why study my campaigns looking for context rather than accepting the reputation everyone believes? Why speak to me as if I am person rather than weapon to be managed?" I took a moment to answer honestly. "Because reputation is what others say about you. Character is what you actually are. Everything in your record suggests someone carrying immense burden while being reduced to a reputation that serves political purposes, but ignores the person underneath. That seems lonely, exhausting, and unfair." Syraith stared at me with intensity that would terrify most people. I held her gaze, refusing to look away. "3 officers refused this binding," she said finally. "Do you know what they actually said?" "I can guess. They said they would rather end their careers than tie themselves to the Scourge, to Syraith the Cruel, to the monster in beautiful form." Her voice remained controlled, but I heard the wound underneath. "I am Velakari. I follow my people's codes, fight their wars, make their hard choices. This makes me dangerous, yes, but it does not make me monster. Yet that is what they see." "I don't see a monster," I said quietly. "I see someone who's been carrying the weight of hard decisions while everyone judges from positions of safety. I see someone brilliant enough to win 17 campaigns being reduced to a reputation that serves fear-mongering better than truth. I see someone whose culture demanded she be strong, and now punishes her for that strength. You see all that from reading military reports. I see that from reading reports while remembering that reports are written about people, and people are always more complex than their reputations. The formal binding ceremony was witnessed by representatives from both peoples, a political spectacle neither of us wanted but both understood as necessary. The Velikari ritual involved exchange of oath blades. When Syraith presented her blade to me, her hands were steady, but I noticed slight tension in her jaw. This was intensely vulnerable by Velikari standards. Offering your blade was offering them ability to strike you down. Trust made tangible. I accepted the blade with proper form, then offered mine. A human combat knife, practical rather than ceremonial. I offer you my blade, I said in formal Velikari, and with it my oath to defend your honor, protect your well-being, and stand as partner rather than judge. It wasn't traditional wording. Several Velikari witnesses stiffened, but Syraith's expression shifted. Something unguarded crossed her face before control re-established itself. After the ceremony, we were given private quarters on the diplomatic station. We stood in the main living area, and for the first time, neither had diplomatic protocol to guide interaction. I do not know how to do this, Syraith admitted, honesty startling. The ceremony I understand, combat protocol I master. But this, she gestured between us, partnership with someone not Velikari, who does not share my framework, who sees me as more than weapon but perhaps does not see clearly what that more is. I do not know how to navigate this. Neither do I responded. But I suggest we start with honesty rather than trying to meet expectations. Honesty, she tested the concept. Very well, honestly, I am exhausted. I have spent 15 years being the Scourge, being First Blade, being the warrior who makes decisions others cannot stomach. I am good at it, perhaps too good. And now I am being asked to be something else, something softer, something that fits political alliance rather than military campaign. I do not know if I can be that thing. What if you didn't have to be? I suggested. What if this partnership isn't about you becoming softer, but about having someone who understands that hardness is sometimes necessary and doesn't judge you for it? You say that, but you do not know what you are accepting. You have read reports, studied campaigns. You have not lived beside someone who wakes from dreams of battles fought, who calculates threat assessment in every room, who has killed so many that their faces blur together. You do not know what it is to partner with someone who has become very good at violence. You're right, I don't know what that's like, but I know what it's like to have made decisions that haunt me, to carry responsibility for outcomes I can't undo, to be judged by people who weren't there. Maybe that's not the same, but it's not entirely foreign either. Syraith studied me with intense focus. What decisions haunt you? I hesitated, then chose honesty. During the war, I commanded a patrol that was ambushed. I had seconds to decide whether to call for extraction, which would save my team but leave Velikari civilians in a settlement we'd been protecting, or hold position and fight. I chose to fight. We held, saved most civilians. Lost 3 soldiers in the process. I made the choice I still believe was right, but I carry the weight of those 3 deaths every day. That is burden of command, Syraith observed. Yes, and I imagine you carry similar burdens multiplied by thousands of decisions across 17 campaigns. So when you talk about being someone who's become very good at violence, someone who carries necessary choices, I'm not claiming to fully understand. But I'm not entirely ignorant either. The first month was gradual revelation. We established routines, Syraith's early combat training, my quiet evenings with history texts, shared meals where stilted conversation slowly became natural. I noticed things others probably missed. The way she paused before entering rooms, assessing threats that didn't exist. The way she positioned herself with clear sight lines even when relaxing. The way she sometimes flinched at unexpected sounds before controlling reaction. Not cruelty. Conditioned responses of someone who'd survived too many actual threats. One evening, 3 weeks in, Syraith returned from a diplomatic function visibly tense. Difficult evening? I asked. The Terran diplomatic corps finds it entertaining to discuss my reputation in my presence, as if I cannot understand their fear and disgust. Her voice was controlled, but I heard the hurt. They speak of the Scourge as if it is separate from me. One ambassador suggested that binding you to me was unfortunate sacrifice for peace, as if I am cursed to endure rather than person to know. I set aside my reading. What did you say? Nothing. What would I say? That their fear is unfounded. They would not believe it. That I regret necessary choices. I do not. That I am more than my reputation. They have decided otherwise. She sat heavily, and for the first time, Syraith looked defeated rather than merely weary. I thought perhaps this partnership would allow me to be seen as more than weapon. But reputation, once established, is nearly impossible to escape. You are the only one who looks at me and sees possibility of person. Then they're fools, I said flatly. People who judge from safety while you carried actual decisions. People who benefit from peace you helped establish while treating you as monster for the methods that made it possible. They're hypocrites. Syraith looked at me with surprise. You defend me. I defend truth against comfortable lies. You're not a monster. You're a warrior who served her people in circumstances that demanded hardness, and you're being punished for that service by people who lack courage to acknowledge their complicity. That's not justice, it's scapegoating. Something in her expression cracked, perfect control fracturing to reveal genuine emotion. Why do you persist in seeing me this way? It would be easier to treat me as dangerous asset to manage. That easier isn't always better. I made a commitment to build partnership based on who you actually are rather than who your reputation claims. I moved to sit beside her. Syraith, can I tell you what I actually see? If you must. I see someone brilliant being reduced to single dimension. Someone who made hard choices and carried moral weight while everyone else maintained distance. Someone exhausted from being strong, from shouldering burdens that would crush most people. Someone lonely because everyone treats her as weapon. And someone who deserves better than being defined by worst necessary moments, while courage, intelligence, and sacrifice get ignored. Her breath caught. You see all that. I see all that and more. I see someone terrified right now, not of combat, but of the possibility that even in this partnership, she'll still be reduced to the Scourge. And I need you to understand. I didn't accept this binding because I'm brave or foolish. I accepted it because I saw through reputation to recognize someone extraordinary being catastrophically misunderstood, and I wanted the chance to know the actual person. For the first time since I'd known her, Syraith cried. Quiet tears that spoke to exhaustion acknowledged, burden partially shared, relief of being seen as more than weapon. I didn't tell her not to cry. I just sat beside her, solid and present, while she allowed herself vulnerability her culture and reputation had never permitted. When she spoke, her voice was rough. I do not know how to be anything except the blade. I do not know if there is anything else left. Then we'll find out together, I responded. You don't have to transform overnight, but maybe in this partnership you can also be tired sometimes, uncertain sometimes, vulnerable sometimes. Not because you're weak, but because you're Velakari, and Velakari need space to be more than their strongest, hardest selves. That would require trust. Yes, and trust requires time, which we have. Patience, which I'm willing to provide. And someone willing to see you as more than your reputation, which is exactly what I'm offering. Months later, when observers commented on how well our alliance functioned, they attributed it to fortune or compatibility. They didn't understand it was neither. It was one person choosing to look past reputation to see truth, and another finally being given space to be more than the blade she was forged into. Syraith was still the most accomplished warrior of her generation, still made hard decisions others judged from safety, still dangerous in ways most couldn't comprehend, but she was also a partner. A person with vulnerabilities and capacity for gentleness she thought was trained out of her. When someone asked why I didn't hesitate when offered alliance with the most feared woman in known space, I told them simply. Because everyone else saw the legend and missed the person, I chose to know the person instead. And Syraith, overhearing, added with dry humor she developed. He is either remarkably perceptive or dangerously oblivious to appropriate threat assessment. I have not yet determined which. But her hand found mine as she said it, and the gentle pressure spoke to trust built between someone taught to be a weapon and someone who insisted on knowing the person who wielded it.